Welcome to the Advantage Podcast, a monthly unscripted conversation with host David Ashcraft and top leaders impacting our world. Created by pastors for pastors to strengthen our leadership and expand our knowledge and influence.
Hey, well, it's good to have you guys with us today on the Advantage Podcast, and real excited to have as our guest Chris Hodges. And many of you, I think all of you know Chris, and at least know of him and his leadership at Church of the Highlands. And so, Chris, thank you for taking time with us today. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great joy of mine to be in front of pastors, so thank you.
And it's a fun relationship that is brand new to me in talking with Chris. I think I talked to you maybe on the phone once last year, even as we talked about some possible joint ventures. And so it's real fun to be able to connect with you now and get to know you a little bit more. So thank you.
Thank you, too. Yeah, we have a couple of events coming up that we're doing together. One I'm doing with and for you, and you with something that we're doing. So I love the collaboration. Thank you very much.
Well, and since you mentioned that, the two things we're doing together, I know that our Advantage guys know about the Global Leadership Network and Base Camp. Base Camp is what we do for pastors, for churches that host the summit. And and all of you are invited to attend this. It's going to be in Washington, D.C., late February. Chris is going to come and be one of our speakers at that and just share more leadership principles with us. And then later in April, Grow Leader Conference is going to be at LCBC. And Chris, I think the way I've heard you describe it is you kind of condense everything you do at your normal conference into one day.
We do. It's it takes about 2.5 days to do our main conference, but our conference sells out in 30 minutes. We open registration almost 11 months ahead of the conference, and as soon as we open registration, next thing you know, 3,500 spots are gone. And so
that's amazing. That's
great.
We
decided to go regionally and go into different areas across America and have a one-day version of the conference. And we're delighted to be able to come to Pennsylvania to do that.
That's great. That's fun to hear. So you guys know Chris, and I was saying to Chris earlier, one of the things that I think the Church of the Highlands has become is the go-to place for figuring out systems, how to do church, how to do it well. And I think back in the day, and when I say the day, the 90s, maybe early 2000s, Willow Creek was probably the church that people were going to. And Chris, hands down, it's now Church of the Highlands that people are going to, or at least talking about, to learn systems. And so way to go for that. But I know that
it's very humbling to hear, but I'm grateful for it.
Well, and I know that it's not always been that way. And so can you give us some history and even for my own knowledge of how things started, how long you've been there and how you got started at Church in the Highlands, and tell us your story.
Well, I was born at an early age. No, I'm just kidding. I was actually born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay.
And immediately,
so are you an LSU fan, or are you?
I'm a big LSU Tiger, brother.
Yeah, are you really?
Which is actually the wisdom of God that I'm in Alabama, that I'm neither Auburn or Alabama, because they hate each other so much.
Okay.
So it's really good that I'm this third party school to them. So anyway, but I was born and raised in a very, very strong Christian home. I think I was in church the Sunday after I was born, literally. I'm 62, and I've never missed a Sunday in church in my entire life. I mean, if you were sick, Dad, like, get a bag, you can throw up at church. You know what I'm saying? My very involved church people, never missed. If we went on vacation, we found a church, our denomination. So I've always been a part of church, and I've always loved it. I didn't become a true born again, in love with Jesus Christian until I was 15. But when I became a believer, bro, I was one of those, I'm all in.
Interesting.
I won so many people to Christ in the first month of me knowing Jesus. And then I was going to everything the church did. I mean, I jokingly say I was there 8 days a week. If it was open, I was there serving. I was bought in. So I'm already this is all in me, right? And so,
did you start thinking ministry pretty quickly then, or even at that age?
No. What happened is I was an accounting major at LSU.
Okay.
Thank God I got delivered from accounting.
Yeah, I don't see you in accounting. That would be tough.
Well, I have a business and math acumen, honestly. So I would have done okay, but it was not the right thing for me.
And I assume that's where the systems building later on in life served you well. Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
And between my sophomore and junior year, the church hired me as a summer intern. And I say hired me, they just kind of gave me a stipend to pay for gas and things like that to help out with the missions trips and the summer camp that summer, and to kind of be an assistant to the youth pastor. And so when I went back from my junior year, I was miserable because I had tasted what I deeply loved. And so after that 5th semester at LSU, I prayed and fasted, and I went to my dad, who I was convinced would never go, they would never say yes to this. And I said, Dad, I really feel like I'm called to ministry, and I want to transition from LSU to a local Bible college. And he said, it's God, Chris. You need to do it. I see it all over your life. And I was just so grateful. And so I enrolled in this incredible Bible school in college, and
So left LSU then.
I left LSU, and then but the church hired me full time, so I was a full time employee and student at the same time, which was very, very difficult. Don't necessarily recommend it. So I've been in ministry 42 years now.
Wow, that's good.
So a very, very long time I've been doing this, and I'm also I was classically trained in piano, so I was always a part of the music experience in church too. I would help build out the productions and the Christmas experiences, and back in the day, the cantatas, we called them, and all of that. And so,
hey, Chris, can I just pause for just 1 minute though, real quick? So you started college, at least that's when you felt like this call to ministry. Same thing for me. It was probably similar to you, between my sophomore and junior years. And we've got people like that in our churches that I think oftentimes we overlook. And so I know you're real focused on raising leaders, but I think sometimes we miss out on young people, college students that are there that have incredible ability. We don't even see them. So, and it's hard as the church gets bigger because you get lost in the system, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, what I think we need to do too is offer opportunities for students to hear. Like if you're in college and it's not right and you sense this call of God on your life, here's a pathway for you.
Yeah.
So we do that here at Highlands College, and it's a delight. I mean, I love seeing it because I truly believe that there are more people called into ministry than are currently pursuing it. They've gotten, sometimes I call it, trapped in trying to make money or pay off debt or education or jobs and things like that. So no, that was my story. I was headed in one direction because that was my dad's field. He was the legislative auditor for the state of Louisiana. Okay. And so I was following in kind of his footsteps, but man, God had something else for me. And so I became kind of a right-hand man to the pastor. I became very much involved in the music. And honestly, David, what my gifting, I think still it is, and it definitely was, is that I could execute a plan. So if you would give me some vision and something you wanted to accomplish, I was very good at coming alongside someone, and I was your guy. Like, if you want this done, I'll get it done for you. And so, I said for years, I'll never be a senior pastor. I want to be the best number 2 guy in the world.
Interesting.
And I wanted to write books on how to sit in the second seat. I wanted to. Yeah, so I loved it. Honestly, I saw what a pastor did, and I didn't want all the pressure and responsibility, and it's tough, and I think all the pastors on your podcast are saying a big amen right now. It's a tough job, but I wanted to, anyway, that's the person I wanted to be. When, in 1999, 2000, I went through an incredible period of depression, and I'm not a depressed kind of a person.
And were you on a church staff at this point then?
Oh, no, still at the same church in Louisiana.
Okay, all right.
And I'm really going through some depression, and I can't figure out why. There's no reason. On paper, I should be the happiest person alive, and I'm not. And so I actually thought it was clinical. I thought it was biological. And our church was a big praying and fasting church. We were fasting before fasting was cool. I mean, we were fasting back in the 90s. And so we started the year with 21 days of prayer and fasting. And I never really, David, took it very seriously. I would do some version of it, right? But I was so desperate for God in the fast of 2000, January 2000, that it was the first time I did a total fast. And for me, that was just the right thing to do at that time. It's not as hard as you think, by the way, to do a water-only total fast. The clarity that I had during that was unbelievable. On day 17, I had an open vision. I saw myself standing behind a pulpit or a podium, and I saw a 2,400-seat auditorium, and I was the speaker. And it was the first time that I ever allowed myself to think that I would do something like that. I didn't know where it was, but I saw it. As clear as I'm seeing you right now, I could see it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And so after the fast was over, I went to my pastor, and I said, and I thought he was going to be so mad at me. I said, I had this vision. And a tear rolled out of his eye, and he says, Chris, it's time for you to be a senior pastor.
So you're late 30s at this point, or are you mid 30s?
Yeah, I was 37, 38, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Okay.
And and so I said, well, what do? I didn't even know what to do. Do you fill out a resume? What do you do? And he said, God will give you supernatural love for a city, and when he does, go move there, and God will give you the city. And I said, well, how do you know what supernatural love is? He goes, you'd be willing to buy your burial plot in that town. And so Tammy and I went on a search for church or cities where we would be willing to buy a burial plot in that we loved it that much. Long story short, I had 8 cities on the initial list, and Birmingham was on that list. And long story short, everything we touched here, without knowing a single person in town, everything we touched had favor on it. I called it kind of like that Midas touch. It turned to gold. And I knew God was blessing it. So blindly, David, we moved here, gave up our salary, I didn't have any support. I didn't have anything. I mean, Pastor Larry agreed to continue my salary for 3 months.
Wow.
And we moved here, and I had to raise money, find a location. Back then, there wasn't anything about church planning. There was no seminars, conferences, books, certainly no one wanting to mentor you or give you any money toward that.
Yeah.
So, and we started Church of the Highlands with 34 people I'd convinced to be a part of what I called the launch team. And
where'd you even meet those people?
I built a contact list of more than 400 names. Like if I met with somebody, I said, do you know anybody else I could call right now? Would you give me their phone number? And I just did it old school, organic.
Yeah, that's great.
And out of 434 agreed to come help me plant the church. I went to the local Baptist University, Stanford University, and recruited some band players. I mean, like I knew no one. Everything had to be recruited.
Hey, Chris, before you go on, I just want to stop for a minute. Yeah, I'd love the analogy. So I'm a huge fan of long-term pastorates. And my pledge to God when I came to LCBC is I'm not going to look anyplace else. You're going to have to make it real clear I've got to move. And so the way you said it, or the way Pastor Larry said it, was someplace that you're willing to go ahead and buy a burial plot. So that's the same thing. You were there intending to be there and not moving.
Still am, by the way.
Yeah, that's cool. And I love that because so often we're looking for the next best thing and we're only here for a temporary time. And then when the next best thing comes along, I'm going to move. And so I love that. So yeah. All right.
Yeah. And not only that idea, but the idea of supernatural love. Like, I don't even know why I love this place, but I do.
Yeah.
Because nobody else loves it like I do. But I think this is the greatest city in America, and it's not, but it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think God does that. So I don't think God is forcing us into positions. In fact, I always resented the phrase that some ministers would say when they said, I surrendered to the ministry. Like, I didn't want to do it, but I did. I think God gives you the delight of your heart. I mean, if you honor God, God will give you the delight of your heart. And that doesn't mean it's easy, but I do think it's fulfilling. It's a desire. So I think pastors should look for that, right? And be in things that they deeply are passionate about, because I think that's a God-given passion. Yeah. And so it would be almost a cruel God who asks us to do something, said, and I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to help you love this. Yeah. Yeah. I think he helps us love it. So anyway, so I was following that, and then 400 people showed up in that very first service.
Wow.
200 came back. So I always say 200 loved it and 200 hated it. And but then it grew to about 600 the first year, grew to 1,200 the next year, and we're still in a 1,000-seat fine arts theater of a high school.
Okay.
And we stayed in that high school for 6.5 years. We were probably 4,500 people without any facility at all.
That's amazing.
We had a little office complex that we would house our offices, and we had a little 230-seat portion of it for leadership training and things like that. And then,
what do you think? What do you think was causing that growth? And were you, because up until that point you'd been in the second chair, then, right? So preaching at least every weekend was not something that you were used to doing. Did that come easy for you?
Well, it did, because I was a youth pastor, so I had a lot of reps, but only to youth groups. So I was used to preparing a lot of messages and on a weekly basis. So that part wasn't real difficult. No, David, to answer your question, I think what our main, if you cut us, the thing that we do best is we make serving God life-giving. So we take it from something you have to do to something you get to do. It's no longer, 1 John 5 says that his commands are no longer burdensome. Well, if you don't love God, every one of the commands are hard. But if you love God, every one of the commands are something you desire to do, so that they now become easy. Yeah. And so we called it, and we just coined it. I don't even know why we coined it this. We actually took it from Genesis chapter 2 and the tree of life versus the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So we called it life-giving Christianity. That what would it look like if you couldn't hardly wait for Sunday to come around? What would it look like? And then what would you have to do and not do in order for that to happen? How would you have to present Jesus in such a way where you were deeply in love with him, not just a servant to him, you know? Because I think, especially here in the Deep South, people had wrong views of God. No one here didn't believe in God, but everyone up here didn't like God.
Interesting.
So everybody was a part of a church, but nobody liked to go to the church. So they would restrict it down to Easter and Christmas and a few Sundays scattered in there because they didn't like it.
So obviously God was blessing you, but you were also presenting a refreshing message, a refreshing outlook on who God is.
And in every Christian discipline, like, let me show you how to enjoy prayer. Let me show you how to enjoy reading your Bible. Let me show you how to enjoy sharing your faith and seeing your friends come to Christ, which I know is a huge deal with LCBC and all the work that you guys, like, we leaned into that space. Yeah. And it just, you know, people loved it. They were disappointed that the service was over, you know, and couldn't wait for the next time for it to come around.
That's great.
So the very first book I ever wrote was called Fresh Air. And it's the whole philosophy around how do you live a life-giving life? How do you take something from have to want to? And so anyway, so it is.
How far in were you when you wrote that book? Was that early on in your ministry?
Oh, no. It was probably, I was close to 50 when I wrote that. So it was 12 years in when I finally wrote my very first book, which that's another leadership lesson all by itself. I think we write books too early sometimes.
Exactly. Interesting.
So here we are. Yeah. And just recently, like you, ours is just about 11 months old, where we transition leadership to the next generation. I'm still founding pastor here, very involved, but someone else is leading the church, and I've given my attention really to two things, and that is we have as you mentioned, the Grow Leader Network, where we just resource churches and pastors, and then also I'm actually in a podcast studio on the campus of Highlands College.
Okay.
That is modeled after our military academies. Like, you can't even get into this school unless you have the intention of being in full-time ministry, which is the same thing for like a West Point. And then we have more of a holistic training approach where academics is only 1/4 of what you get here. You get a 4-year bachelor's degree, but you also get character formation and ministry training and spiritual development as curriculums unto themselves.
That's great.
And so we like to say we're America's Ministry Leadership University, and I'm having the time of my life being chancellor of this school.
I have a friend, side note here, I have a friend that accredits colleges. I think they accredit you guys. Phil Dearborn is his name, but he speaks very highly of what you guys are doing there in your school. So, yeah.
And I invite every one of the pastors that are listening to come take a tour. I'll personally give you the tour, because if you have students who want to be in full-time ministry, I would like, I'm going to make this, it's a bold statement. Hope it doesn't come across the wrong way. I think we do the best job preparing students for full-time ministry. And we can send them right back to you fully equipped and trained in every way. We place every one of our students get placed upon graduation back into their local churches or into full-time ministry in some way. So I'm having the time of my life.
Let me dig into that a little bit more as far as getting placed back into the churches, because my background was Dallas Seminary. I had opportunity a number of years ago to speak there for a week, and the president said, how come? He wanted to know, why do I not send more people there to school? I said, because we send them and they never come back, and you're going to ruin them, and we don't want to do that. And so you're saying if we send people to the college there, that you're going to train them, but you're not going to keep them all there at Church of the Highlands. So.
Oh, I mean, less than 1%, actually.
Is that right?
So, no, we have every intention. In fact, we build strong relationship with local church pastors. More than 22,000 pastors we have a relationship with that trust us to steward well the precious commodity of these young leaders. And no, we're very intentional about getting them right back into that harvest field.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's cool. So let me go back to, you were at 4,500 people. You're still meeting in a school. At some point, you started developing systems, probably really early on, but I would imagine they weren't what they are today. And so describe a little bit how you started developing systems, because I think that's one of the things that I hear pastors struggle with all the time. But then also, how did you move on from that rental facility to starting to build buildings? And now you've got buildings everywhere. But
Yeah. Today we have, locations all across Alabama and a few in the state of Georgia that are actually closer than some of our Alabama locations because of the way the states are shaped. And we have
how many locations do you have, and how many people would you have on a weekend now?
Well, there are 26 locations and over 60,000 in actual attendance.
That's amazing.
Weekend.
That's great.
And we are in all 28 of Alabama's Department of Corrections facilities every Sunday.
Very cool.
One of the great joys of my life. And so, no, God's blessed it in a tremendous way. The way I answer that question, though, about systems, David, is systems. Everybody's a systems person. They only call me a systems person because it's working so well. But everybody has a system, because what a system simply delivers a vision. So it's what you're doing to accomplish something. And everybody does something. So everybody has a service time. Everybody has service days. They have what the service looks like. The question is it working?
Yeah.
So what a real good system does is it delivers vision, which means you have to define vision first. And we're very Great Commission, like you, very Great Commission focused, that we decided we were going to be a church that reaches lost people. So then we ask ourselves the question, are lost people being reached, both in the services and outside the services? And if the answer is no, then you have a bad system. That whatever you're doing...
And I would just stop you there and say most pastors don't ever ask that question. So
well, exactly.
My experience has been we don't ever get that far. We just,
Well, and that's
not
why
far at all. That's the starting point. Yeah.
And on the opening night of Grow Leader Conference, the first thing I do is say, this is not an option, guys. This is God's vision for us. People say, what's your vision? It's like, I don't even get the luxury of asking that question, because I'm not serving my vision. I'm serving God's vision, and it's called the Great Commission. And it's very clear in Scripture. No one debates this, that it basically is lost people saved people pastored, pastored people discipled, and discipled people mobilized. And so we decided those are the four things we're going to focus on. And then we put language to it. Language like we want people to know God, find freedom, discover their purpose, and make a difference. And then we created systems that will deliver that. So what would we have to do? What kind of services, or how would we have to train the congregation in order for scores of people to find Christ?
Yeah.
And then same thing with pastoring people. Like, how are we even going to measure that? What does that even look like to say this person is pastored or cared for? And so we built in systems like small groups and things that we can ensure people are being trained in the Scriptures and being cared for, and having somebody who can ask them the hard question, man, how are you really doing? Things like that. We built a system for people to discover their spiritual gift and their purpose, and then we mobilize, probably better than just about any place that I know, which is the touchdown line really of the Great Commission. And that is now these same Christians are mobilized in the church and outside the church to make a difference, to repeat the whole process all over again, to help people know God, find freedom, discover, make a difference. And so in order to have a great system, you're asking me the question, this is how you do it. You create it, and then you have to measure it. Okay? And if what you created isn't producing what you thought it should produce, you change it. And you keep tweaking it until it's producing the horsepower that you believe is required or needed for that particular area. And so we get down into the weeds of that. When we help churches, we coach a lot of churches right now, helping them tweak their systems and build all this out. And this is not to look like Church of the Highlands. This is look like what Jesus asked us to do with these four things. So we help churches build experiences where lost people come to Jesus. We had over 390,000 documented decisions for Christ in the 25-year history of our church.
That's great. That's cool.
We have 100% of the church in small groups. We have a growth track where people can discover their spiritual gifts and their purpose. And then we mobilize an army of volunteers and ministers into the community and into the church. And if any one time the dashboard says that's not working anymore, then we go back and we start tweaking the system. That's what it's that. And I am wired that way. I have to admit I am, because that's how I'm wired. But it's something that we found out that it's not something hard to do if you know how to do it. So that's what we do. We just give churches and pastors the tools in order for those things to happen.
And Chris, I would think, again, it's been developed and polished as you've gone along. But bottom line, if pastors would just take that first step of saying, is this even working what we're doing? And so that evaluation step, you don't need a dashboard. You don't need anything to do that. It's just being willing to ask the hard question.
And I even say stop defending what's not working.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, because we know there's some areas where we're
all
not
kinds
even
of excuses.
we're not even living up to the mandate that Jesus gave us, right?
Yeah.
And again, has nothing to do with Church of the Highlands. The mandate of Jesus is very clear in Scripture, so that's what we're wanting to do. And
so ask the question, is this working? Being willing to tweak and say, if it's not, then let's make changes. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what you did so well. I mean, you had people, I know your story. You had people who did not want you taking the church in that direction, but you had this tenacious focus on this is what I know we're supposed to do. And look at the results, look what happened because of that. And so sometimes we get too much pressured by what people want, because honestly, if you let people decide, there's a gravitational pull to selfishness. They only want you to do the things that they like,
right?
Not that's good for the community. And certainly, I even had one person say one time, says, "Don't you think this church is big enough?" And I said, "Probably for you, but not for the lost person."
Right.
I said that to her. I said, "Well, I hate it for the lost person if it is."
Yeah.
And they just kind of stepped back, and said, if you had a lost child or lost friend, you would want us to look for one more, and do everything we can to reach one more. So it's a perspective issue. Yeah,
that's good. Who were some of your influences when you were starting out in ministry? You talked about a pastor, Larry, that was a part of your pastor mentor, but who else were you listening to, learning from in that process?
Well, Pastor Larry still is my pastor. Let me start there. And he is a Great Commission person to the nth degree. I mean,
so you got that from him.
Yeah, he was a missionary in Africa for years, and there's nothing more he loves than seeing souls saved. So just very focused and a man of deep prayer and integrity. So I learned the prayer things that have come into our church. You got a point there. I've been mentored by John Maxwell for more than 20 years. We're actually extremely close friends now. We vacation together every year. He's one of my closest relationships. But 80% of what I've learned in leadership, I've learned from John. When it came to systems, I had a series of books that I...
Can I ask you real quick about John? So, because I think sometimes people would hear that and they go, well, that's great for you because you have opportunity to be with John. And I would say John mentored me as well, but it was from afar. I mean, I was listening to every cassette, everything. There were cassettes when I was first listening, but Bill Hybels, a variety of people, I would listen to them. And it wasn't until later in life that I had opportunity to get to know them and be friends with them. And so you don't have to be face to face with the person all the time.
100%. In fact, the first 5 years that I pursued him, he kind of blew me off. I couldn't get into his world while he was still mentoring me. Absolutely. In fact, one of the greatest mentors that I never got close to, I do know him personally, but I never got close to him, was Rick Warren. And he was very much a systems person, very focused. Of course, he didn't have the 4 areas, he had 5 because he included the Great Commandment with the Great Commission. And so he would say the first one is to worship God and then do those 4 things that I already mentioned. But no, man, the systematic approach that Saddleback had and has to walk people through that spiritual journey. In fact, it was the purpose-driven church, not the purpose-driven life, that was the best book, in my opinion.
I would agree with you as well. That was I was starting out as a pastor at that point. I read that. And it's one of those books, Chris, when I read it, I thought all these things, never knew how to package it all and put it together. And it was huge for me.
And to me, it's ageless. Every pastor listening can go back and read that book.
I would agree. Yeah.
And so those were the main ones, honestly, that had shaped my life. And I was, like you, influenced by the worship and worship atmosphere of the Hillsong years. And I was shaped by, learning how to relate to people that are far from God, from Willow Creek and others. So it was really, truly a combination. But I was so tenacious at wanting to build something great. And so now, Dave, this is so funny. When I walk people through our campuses, what I do is I say, hey, you see that? We learned that from, and I named the person or the church.
Yeah, that's fun.
Because none of this was our idea. We went through and we found the best practices and just combined them all into one place.
That's fun. So you guys would definitely believe in God being a part of your church, Spirit leading you, and yet systems. And so sometimes I'll hear people talk about systems as though they are Holy Spirit, anti-God's movement. So how do you put the two together?
Well, again, I tell them, well, that you have a system. So you're saying to me you don't have a service time? Yeah. Well, that's a system. Again, you're still doing something. Even if your system is we're not going to have a plan and we're going to let the Holy Spirit move as He wants to. It's still your system.
Yeah.
So and I always say the right way is the way that works. And if what you're doing is working, do it.
Yeah.
But don't defend what's not working. If you're not getting these 4 things done, if people aren't getting saved, pastored, discipled, and mobilized, then I will argue to my grave that you're doing something that Jesus never asked you to do, or you're doing something that's not focused on what He did ask you to do. So I just bring them right back to the words of Jesus and to the mandate. This is a mandate. I don't have the luxury of not doing it. He asked me to do this.
That's good. What do you miss stepping away now? So you're only 11 months in. Have you had time to miss anything from your old role? Do you miss speaking every week? Are you still speaking on a regular basis? Or
I can honestly tell you, there's not been a single day that I've regretted the decision and wish I was doing it again. The mantle, and honestly, in some ways, David, the grace of the day-to-day of leading a church lifted, and conversely, this mandate and this grace and this passion to train up a generation of young leaders who can change the world is on me in a way that I can't hardly describe. In fact, the moment that I knew we were supposed to do it, Mark Pettis is our lead pastor now. He walked in and he said to me, just out of the blue, he says, and by the way, he was president of our college. Okay. And I said, he goes, every day I wake up with a new idea for the church. And it kind of startled me. And I said, well, Mark, that's interesting, because every day I wake up with a new idea for the school.
Interesting.
And this was about 2.5 years ago. And I said, maybe we should go on a journey of you doing what I do. Seems like because God is giving you the grace. Because I truly believe, and this is a leadership point, David, that the person who has the grace on their life for something is also the architect of it. They get the blueprint. And I was not waking up every day with a new idea for the church. I was waking up a new idea for the school.
Interesting.
And Mark was having the opposite of that. And that's when we realized God's making you the architect of the church. He's giving you that grace, and I have it for the school. And so we worked very, very hard on the process, and to God be the glory, it's gone extremely, extremely well. So
that's great. So you're not missing speaking, or are you still speaking on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think I'm speaking in 2026 12 times this year. So
okay. So that hasn't been a part that you missed. So yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I've never really lived to preach. I love taking people on a spiritual journey. I use preaching as a catalyst to get that process going, but I've never lived just for people to come hear me speak. I love taking people on a journey and building something where people can realize all that God has for them.
Yeah, that's good. At what point did you start feeling like you were a leader, that you could lead not only the church, but other churches or other pastors? Was there ever a time that you go, oh man, maybe I have more influence than I realized, or it's just kind of built around you?
Well, that actually happened when we had this church planning organization, the ARC, and pastors of existing churches were coming to our church planner trainings, and I kept saying, "This is not for you, man. This is for new churches. Why are you here?" And they kept saying, "Well, we need this stuff too." And so basically, it dawned on me, what would it look like if we had, some resources and some training for existing churches. And so in 2010, we started this Grow Leader Conference, and immediately was packed out. And we gave them all these resources. We actually give away more than 35,000 free resources on our share site, an internet site where they can download all this free material and free resources. And now we started coaching churches, and with the goal of helping churches reach their growth potential. And we've had more than 1,100 churches, triple, quadruple in size since then. And so it's been loads of fun. I think now more than 22,000 churches monthly download resources for free. So having a ball, just trying to give whatever we have to churches. If it can help them, use it,
And what was your dream when you went to Birmingham and started Church of the Highlands? What in your mind did you think could possibly happen?
Oh, it was nothing like this.
I
thought we'd be one single location. I thought we'd have maybe 10, 15, 20,000 at the most. I thought that.
So you were thinking that big, though.
My home church in Louisiana had a 6,000 seat auditorium.
Okay, so you were used to something big.
And did several services. So I had a large church mentality already.
Okay.
And so that's what I was going to do, though, just build one large auditorium and have 2 or 3 services a Sunday. But God had something else in mind. And
it's interesting, Chris. I mean, because you were in a big church, you had in your mind what was capable, or what you were capable of was a big church. And even for me, my dad's church was about 2,500. So I thought, church of 2,500, that's what we could be. And so we're definitely influenced by that early formation.
We all have leadership lids.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to lift your lids is to get around bigger things.
Yeah.
And so in any area where you need to get bigger or better, the best thing to do is go and experience that place. And what happens is the lid lifts inside of your heart and your leadership mind. And it's vitally important, I think.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I think early days for us at LCBC, even when we were 200 people, I would take people to Willow Creek, and it was just kind of our little town of 4,000 people and a church of 200 people, going to a church then of 10 or 12,000 people, just kind of blew their minds. I think today that happens with people coming to you and seeing Church of the Highlands. Yep. And so, I love that. I think the easiest way to even cast vision sometimes is just take them a place to see that's operating the way you'd like to operate. So. Yeah.
A lot of pastors have what I call a scarcity mindset. There's a limited amount of people, limited amount of things I could do, limited. When really you need to have an abundance mindset. God does exceedingly abundantly more than we could ask or think. And so the question is, how do we stretch that muscle, that spiritual muscle, to believe God for more? And I love helping pastors do that.
One other question for you. You're in the spotlight a lot, and so I'm sure that you get negative feedback, people that push back on you, that'll say things. And so do you address it? Do you not address it? How do you deal with it? And how does it impact you personally?
Well, I'm human enough that anything negative or things like that, especially in my opinion, when more than 90-something% of it is just grossly wrong. Yeah, I'm human enough that I'm still a person, and it hurts your feelings and all that. But you have to learn how to realize. To your point, I've heard you teach the 90-10 principle. There's 10% that you're never going to please ever, no matter what you do. And so that is just the leadership journey. I don't like it, but it is the leadership journey that if anytime you're a pioneer, as Craig Rochelle says, if you're a pioneer, there's going to be arrows in your back, And that just happens. But you know what? Compared to what the Apostle Paul had to go through, I always, I have an article from time to time, or a mad person from time to time. Paul had chains and blood and scars and beatings, and so. I think sometimes the modern day church is a little spoiled in what we call persecution. Yeah. So I always remind myself of what our predecessors went through, and especially Jesus himself, who was rejected by men, the Bible says, So that's just a part of leadership. Paul said, in every place I go, that I know there will be hardship. And so I embrace it as a part of the leadership journey. I don't have to like it, but I do embrace it as a leadership journey. Try to keep a positive attitude. Where I can bring clarity to it, I do. You say, do I respond to it? If I can bring clarity to it, I think it would be helpful. But sometimes you do have to just flat out ignore it. Yeah. Because it's just, if somebody says this cup is yellow, what do you say? I don't even know how to debate that. It's just white. It is white, Yeah, and so sometimes you just kind of walk on and just keep doing what you're doing. But I honestly, David, let me just say this. The blessings far, far outweigh any of the hardships that I've had to face in my life. And I'm grateful to God for it.
Yeah, well, good for you. Well, very much appreciate, Chris, your ministry, what you've built there at Church of the Highlands, what God has used you to build there at Church of the Highlands, and now the school as well. And you guys are making a huge difference. It's, like I said, everywhere I travel, Church of the Highlands is the go-to place. And so fun to hear that and connect with you. And so thank you for spending time with us and just encouraging our Advantage pastors.
Yeah, thank you so much, David.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Advantage Podcast with David Ashcraft, and for participating in our goal to strengthen and encourage pastors and their churches so more people are introduced to Jesus across Pennsylvania. If you found this helpful, feel free to pass it along. To find out more about the work of The Advantage, visit our website at theadvantage.org.